Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and here is your detailed weather forecast update for Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025. A lot to get through today. That east coast low situated offshore from New South Wales really causing some rainfall problems, and it has been for the last couple of days. There is a bit of good news with this storm though, but plenty more rainfall still to come. There's also some rainfall happening over in southwest and western Australia, and I'll get to that at the end of this forecast update. Let's dive straight into things over in New South Wales right now, but not before. If you haven't subscribed, then please do consider subscribing and also leave a like on the video while you're at it. But let's get stuck straight into things with this very dramatic swirl situated offshore from New South Wales at this point in time. This is a proper monster of an east coast low, especially in terms of how strong the wind speeds are and how much rainfall we've seen across the southeastern corners of New South Wales through the Illawarra and South Coast forecast districts. We have had some of the heaviest rainfall that they've seen in the last 10 years, and rainfall accumulations are still continuing to pile in for some locations, especially south of Ullawarra through Narooma and then down towards Mallacoota and the Victorian New South Wales border. Plenty more rainfall still to come from this system as well, but let's just take a hot second to appreciate what this system looks like right now. If we zoom right in on the storm centre, I mean, that's a swirl, that's a spiral if ever you've seen one from an east coast low weather system. It is a very powerful and defined weather system. It's got a pressure of 986 millibars at this point in time, and it is still, believe it or not, intensifying. The good news here is that it is situated offshore from New South Wales, and it isn't too close to the coastline, relatively speaking, which means the winds, especially into some of the more exposed locations north of Gosford, through Newcastle, Nelson Bay, and up towards Foster and Taree, they're not as exposed as what we did initially expect, and that's why the winds along the coast, they've been very gusty, that's for sure, but in terms of sustained winds, they haven't been that strong once you get north of about Sydney. Further south, though, the wind threat is still very much there, 71 kilometres an hour, gusting to 90 kilometres an hour at Flyer Stanwell, just north of Wollongong. Very strong winds, and they've been like that for the past day and a half at this point in time. Winds averaging 50 to 80 kilometres an hour along the New South Wales south coast as well, with peak gusts up to 110 kilometres an hour overnight. And like I said, rainfall still a very significant factor at play here with this severe weather event. Overnight rainfall accumulations have been very dramatic, that's for sure, to say the least. Outside of Bateman's Bay, up to 200 millimetres has fallen just overnight at some personal weather stations. Widespread falls between 125 and 175 millimetres. That's on top of the 120 millimetres or so that fell yesterday, leading to 2.5-day rainfall accumulations as a result of this weather event, now approaching 300 millimetres for a few locations, especially for those outside of Ulladulla, Bateman's Bay, down towards Narooma, and then further north up through Nowra and Boral, where another really heavy round of rainfall did occur last night, and as such rainfall accumulations there from this storm event so far already approaching about 300 millimetres. Flooding hasn't been too much of a problem yet. We have had some reports of minor flooding here and there and some storm damage from flash flooding here and there as well across the south coast and especially the Illawarra forecast districts. However, at this point in time we haven't seen any widespread reports of moderate or even major riverine flooding, which has been pretty good at this point in time. Very good to see, that's for sure, because we don't really want the rainfall to get any worse from where it is at this point in time. Unfortunately, there is definitely some more rainfall on the cards, and if we take a look at the forecast aspect here from this low pressure system, whilst rainfall is expected to temporarily ease off throughout this morning, we will see a little bit of a resurgence in rainfall and moisture moving through into the New South Wales coastline for at least a couple of hours later on this afternoon into this evening. Most likely between 6 o'clock tonight and about midnight tonight is when we'll see that resurgence of rainfall and moisture approaching the New South Wales coastline. That will be the last of it though. From early tomorrow morning, the showers and storms will begin to ease off as this system pulls away from the New South Wales coastline, heading further out and out into the Tasman Sea, where it will unravel and fall apart through Thursday. And the conditions across New South Wales clearing through Thursday night and clearing completely through Friday, when what we're expecting is going to be quite a fine weekend. So again, some good weather on the way in the wake of this very nasty severe weather that we've had across the New South Wales central and south coasts. So like I said, just that again, if we were to zoom in and take a look at the convective forecast modelling here for the rainfall outlook, you can see there is a little bit of heavier stuff still expected, and we would expect some heavier trains of rainfall to come through into the next couple of hours or so. And as this low pressure system does pull away from the New South Wales coastline, and that moisture band that you can quite clearly see now moving in on the southern side of the system here, well out to sea, that gets self-collided with the southeastern coast of New South Wales. We will see, like I said, that resurgence in rainfall. But again, there is a little bit of good news here. The storm has moved so far far south that the sea temperatures where this moisture band is developing at this point in time are a lot lower than what the sea temperatures would be if it was a little bit further north. I mean, we're talking about a few pockets here of 17 or 18 degrees, which is more than enough warmth in the ocean for an east coast low to kind of get its act together and provide some heavy rainfall and really build some heavy showers. But when we start talking about temperatures 14 pushing 15 or 16 degrees, there's a lot less energy in the environment, an exponentially lower amount of energy in the environment for this storm to make the most of. So there might not be as much moisture as what some of the forecast modelling is suggesting, especially the convective forecast modelling, and that shows in the future rainfall accumulations, in fact, seldom falls above 100 millimetres expected from this point onwards. So what I would just like to say here and quite officially announce it, the worst is definitely over. There'll definitely still be some heavy rainfall and some heavy falls here and there into the south coast and parts of the Illawarra, but we're, for the most part, expecting the worst conditions from this storm so far at this point in time to be over and to be behind us. The winds will still keep howling throughout the remainder of today, and there'll still be some gusty showers and some heavy rainfall later tonight, but for the most part, we're not expecting torrential rainfall to return for much of New South Wales. It will still rain heavy here and there, though, and it's definitely not a message of let your guard down and completely relax from this storm at this point in time. I'm definitely not saying that, but for right now, the worst conditions definitely do look to be behind us. That also goes for people further north, Wollongong, Sydney, Gosford and Newcastle right now, 4 big places in the midst of this storm being just offshore from them, and again, very strong winds still howling along the coastlines, very significant rainfall showers as well wrapping around into this system here, and you can see it on the 1 hour radar loop here. This storm's still really getting its act together, and it looks to be continuing on its intensification run at this point in time. It looks a lot like a subtropical cyclone at this point in time, but the storm here, it is, like I said, far enough away from the coastline, and again, it does look like these areas of New South Wales are protected enough as to where the damaging and destructive wind threat has remained exclusively to the coastal regions, and if not, it's remained offshore. And in terms of rainfall as well, they haven't had too much in the way of really significant stuff, so very good news indeed, and it has really panned out to be quite a good result from what's quite a dire forecast of the Sydney metro area. We have had some significant rainfall accumulations as well that need not to say any more about that. We've had about 125 millimetres into some of the wetter suburbs, and again, falls along the coastline have also been pretty heavy at times, not to mention the coastal erosion that's been occurring around Sydney as well from the monster waves that this system is funneling ashore. It has been quite a serious situation there in terms of coastal erosion. Winds as well have also been pretty dramatic across the New South Wales central coast, but this could have been a whole lot worse. We're now talking about a storm that's kind of the worst we've seen in a couple of years as opposed to the worst storm that we've seen in a couple of decades. It wasn't a storm in a teacup, but it certainly was a lot better than what it could have been around the Sydney area. Still a disaster further south, but for the Sydney area, they've really dodged a bullet here from this powerful east coast low. Again, very good news, and I'm very happy to be the bearer of good news this morning. And as you might be able to tell, this system is now making that jog towards the northeast, which means it's going to pull away from the New South Wales coastline momentarily, and this dramatic looking swirl should be far enough offshore as to where significant severe weather conditions in the form of damaging winds shouldn't be felt north of Sydney from about this evening onwards. In fact, wind gusts should really drop off around the Sydney area through tonight into early tomorrow morning. They will still be quite gusty here and there. It's still expected to remain a very strong extratropical cyclone, and you can see further offshore winds will still be gusting well in excess of 115 kilometres an hour. In fact, they could temporarily get a little bit stronger as the cloud clears a little bit, and then we get that resurgence of rainfall coming through further south along the coastline. Winds could get a little bit stronger between Wollongong down towards Narooma through this evening. However, for the most part, the damaging wind threat for suburban Sydney should ease off through this afternoon, and then for the coastline through early tomorrow morning and into tomorrow afternoon further north, which is some good news again. It looks like the finer weather will return just in time for the weekend from about Friday onwards. It's interesting stuff, that's for sure. Plenty still going around New South Wales, and as you can see from the wind observations, still some very significant wind gusts occurring at this point in time. They have been whipping up some significant wave heights as well. I mean, need we say much more about what the seas and the swell conditions have been like over the last couple of days? We've had some very significant waves, and they are now beginning to ease off a little bit, but they're going to resurge again through this tonight and into early tomorrow morning. We're still expecting seas to pummel the New South Wales coastline of between 5 to 7 metres for the next 24 to 36 hours at least, before they drop below about 4 metres through tomorrow evening, and then on to Friday morning, seas expected to drop below 2.5 metres. Still some very significant wave heights here and there right out towards Friday morning, but the worst of it definitely does look to be behind us. Still some big waves still to come, and some coastal erosion is still expected, or some widespread coastal erosion can still be expected, but for the most part, the worst conditions are at this point in time behind us. I'm just putting up some webcams right now around Bondi. This is at Maroubra Beach here. Some very big wave heights occurring going across the east coast, and you can see that sea is absolutely hideous at this point in time. The waves haven't came right up to kind of the breakwaters, or the retaining walls at this point in time. They've definitely caused some pretty significant problems for a couple of breakwaters, and that's why we have had some pretty substantial coastal erosion here and there. But the webcams do kind of say it all. This is at Bondi Beach here, very significant waves. The webcam footage does not do it justice, that's for sure. I imagine if you went down to Bondi at this point in time, good to see that the beach is closed and empty, but if you went down there, of course, at your own risk and heeded all warnings, you'd be in for a treat in terms of how big some of those wave heights are, though. But that is absolutely at no point in time recommended until the seas and swirls do begin to die off. Very significant waves, though, that's for sure, and certainly a sight to see over at Bondi. But we'll stick to browsing the webcams as opposed to being storm chasers ourselves. I think that's a little bit of a safer bet at this point in time. Armchair storm chasing, that's what I call that. Anyways, this system here is moving away from the coastline. There may be another update on this later tonight, depending on how severe the conditions do get again through New South Wales. I would just like everybody to know again that there is going to be a resurgence in the severity of this storm here through this afternoon and this evening hours. We're not expecting anything crazy, and definitely the worst conditions are behind us, but don't get complacent. There is still some more severe weather on the way. So again, it is definitely still time to remain vigilant, and definitely still time to remain inside and avoiding all non-essential travel if you can do so, if you are under those severe weather warnings. Just before we leave this system here, I would like to talk about the snowfall that it's actually brought into the northern half of New South Wales, as far north as Glen Innes and the Barrington Tops. It has been quite cold overnight. You can see 1 degree at Glen Innes there. All those cold winds whipping around on the southern and the western side of the system here have made their way up into the northern parts of New South Wales, keeping things very cold for pretty much everywhere apart from the central coast, and we have had some snowfall here and there onto the higher elevations, and also some snowfall into the lower elevations as well as we get further south in towards New South Wales and parts of the Snowy Mountains in Victoria as well. Cold across Tasmania too. They'll have a cold southerly throughout the remainder of today. A little bit more milder on the east coast, but the west coast remaining cold as these winds whip around onto the southern and the western side of the system here. Cold through South Australia, cold into Queensland, cold into the Northern Territory. Thankfully, mild over in Western Australia because of that cloud, and that's going to result in some rainfall that I'll get to in just a hot second. The temperatures should warm up a little bit as this system pulls away from the coastline, but at this point in time, it definitely does look like it is going to remain a little bit chilly and a little bit cold across much of New South Wales and Victoria throughout the remainder of today, especially those impacted by cloud and drizzly rain. Anyways, southwest WA, we do have that rainfall coming through. You can see a bit of a shattered cold front further offshore from Western Australia this morning. It definitely doesn't look like anything impressive, but it is expected to bring some much needed and some relatively healthy rainfall accumulations here and there to the southwest of WA. We had a very weak northwest cloud band try and get its act together last night. That's since moved inland through the northern parts of the wheat belt, moved forward by this cold front that's going to approach the southwest through this afternoon and into this evening, but we're expecting it to collide with the Perth coastline very slowly in a bit of a gradual process through tonight and into early tomorrow morning. Sea temperatures still remain very warm offshore from the southwest of Western Australia, so I have no reason to believe why this system here can't evaporate and create a whole lot of moisture for it, and that could mean some healthy rainfall accumulations around the Perth metro area and the southwest as a whole. At this point in time, it's still a little bit difficult to tell because of just looking at the forecast modelling here and also how the system is appearing right now on the radar imagery. It looks like a pretty shattered system, which means that rainfall could be quite hit and miss, but for the most part, I would expect at least a widespread dump of about 20 or 25 millimetres across much of the south coast and into the southwest, even into the lower west as well, with some isolated spot falls up to 50 or even 60 millimetres, including the showers that will come through behind this system tomorrow on Thursday. But it is still, again, just a little bit too hard to tell further north of Perth at this point in time, just considering how this storm is kind of looking on the radar and the satellite imagery. It looks really shattered at this point in time, and when we see systems like that, it does make the forecasting job an absolute headache. As you can see on the European forecast, though, widespread falls between 20 to 25 millimetres expected across swathes of the southwest. Even into the lower west, some falls up to 25 millimetres expected. Weather zone going pretty bullish with 20 to 40 millimetres forecast to the Perth metro area tonight and into tomorrow morning. And I do believe that that is definitely a bullish forecast. Don't get me wrong, there'll be places that pick up close to 50 millimetres of rainfall from this weather system, but I wouldn't be expecting those places to be in or around Perth at this point in time. That does seem to be a little bit bullish, especially from the system and how it's looking looking right now. Further north, falls could be as low as 10 millimetres, or they could be as high as 30 or even 35 millimetres, and again, much needed rainfall, so they will take that with open arms. Of course, it goes without saying this is not severe weather, so we're not expecting flooding or anything like that, but again, some good rainfall coming through, and definitely the stuff that Perth needs to see on the forecast right now. Pushing the forecast forward, especially from about Friday or Saturday onwards throughout the course of the weekend, we will see a couple of showers coming through later on into the weekend through Saturday, Sunday, Monday and Tuesday. Nothing too crazy coming through at this point in time. We're not expecting anything in terms of a massive cold front, but Sunday night into Monday morning we could see a bit of a cold front come through, delivering some good showers and rainfall here and there. And then again, after that, a couple of days of dry weather before the wetter weather returns into the middle parts of July, or definitely into the later middle parts of July by the looks of things. After about the 15th, it looks like we might have a dry run for about a week across the southwest of WA before the rainfall returns after about the 15th. Again, still a little bit too early to tell how or what we're expecting long range, but July has been shaping up to be a little bit drier than average, or a little bit below the benchmark in terms of rainfall, and that definitely looks like what the forecasts are now saying at this point in time, especially the medium range forecasts, which go out to about July the 20th. There's nothing in the way of rainfall that kind of suggests to me that July is going to be anything special in terms of rainfall across the southwest of Western Australia, but not just southwest WA, but also southern Australia as a whole, which is quite unfortunate because, again, a lot of places are just screaming out for rainfall at this point in time and would take whatever they can get, and there's just not an awful lot on the forecast modelling right now. So again, all of this rainfall that's coming through is very, very special indeed, and I treat it like liquid gold, or the liquid gold that it is. Anyways, that is going to have to do it for today's weather forecast. I do hope you found it informative and helpful, especially over in New South Wales. And if you've got any questions or comments on this system, then make sure you do let me know in the comment section down below. I'd be more than happy to help you out down there. Also, check out the Facebook page. There'll be future updates on this system over on the Facebook page as well. And I would like to say a special thank you for all of the support recently on the Facebook page and also on the YouTube channel. It really does mean a lot to me. Special shout out to the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now. Again, I could not run the show without them. So again, their support is always much appreciated, but that is all from me today, and I'll catch you on the next storm. Goodbye.